Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This is Tuesday, August 24th, 6 p.m. The first order of business is conflict of interest. Does anybody of the 5 commissioners up here have any conflict of interest with any items on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Second item is the approval of the minutes. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes of July 27th.
Hi, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes of July 27th. Oh wait, I wasn't here for that one, so should I skip
Okay,
it?
we'll need somebody else.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Vega.
second.
Commissioner Gordon. Any comments, corrections? No? Okay, can we have a vote?
Board Member Smith? Oop, I didn't get you on.
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Guerrera?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Chairperson Thomas?
Yes. Next item is public participation. If you're here for an item on the agenda, we'd like you to wait until we get to that item and we have the presentation. If you're here for some other comment you want to make, you're welcome to come up now. Sure, come ahead if you want to come and talk.
Good evening, Commissioners.
And point of order, do I need to swear him in? This is not an item, so I don't need to swear him in, right? Pardon?
Can I have you on the microphone, please?
Robert Cabello, for the record. You don't have to have him sworn in.
All right, thank you. Yes, I just need your name for the record.
Thank you, Chair Thomas. Gregory Shervanick, for the record, Shervanick. My comments are for the special work session that took place on Monday. I first want to thank Commissioner Gordon for...
Sorry, which Monday?
I'm sorry?
Which, the work session that took place on Monday, yesterday, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Frieza Nichols, you were in attendance.
Yes.
As Commissioner Gordon. I want to thank Commissioner Gordon for at least allowing the public who has lived here and will live here with the interest of the new dynamics of Elevate Las Cruces. I have been an opponent of that document since it began. I was not surprised by our city councilors, Vasquez, Bencomo, or Sorg, and their comments, as they are extremely biased towards development in the city. I was a little taken back by Chair Thomas, your reciting of one particular infill development that this board voted on twice. By belittling them in their first decision, I didn't think it was fair that you told the city council, since you are a strong voice, that it was your personal preference and you were dissatisfied by how infill development is proceeding in the city of Las Cruces. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is George Pearson. I have a request on your agenda and then a comment on the upcoming zoning and development code updates. My request is that you remove item 1 from the consent agenda. This business has undergone considerable scrutiny to get to this point. For the sake of transparency, I'm asking to hear the staff presentation, which I hope will include a history of the zoning and any restrictions that may be part of the property. My comment on the upcoming code changes is to require bicycle parking for all commercial properties above a certain size. Current zoning has a bicycle parking requirement, but only for new construction. My request is for bicycle parking that includes existing businesses. We want to encourage bicycling, but that can't happen without safe parking at destinations. Just as a quick example, the Albertsons on Main Street recently redid their parking lot. The ADA signs previously could be used to lock up to, but these have been changed, and now they don't have any suitable parking for bicycles. Thank you.
So I have to ask legal for, we've already accepted the agenda without changing. Can we go back and move an item off of consent?
The vote, Chair, Council, you've already made the vote by accepting the agenda item, so the item's already been voted for. So you've already been approved. My understanding is when you accepted the agenda on consent.
I guess I was misunderstood. Most places
Okay.
have a separate vote on the consent agenda. And since
Say that again?
Chair, Commission, my understanding is that there has not been a vote for accepting the agenda, so you can actually pull that off the consent agenda.
Okay. Pardon? Okay, how shall we do this? I need, is there anybody up here willing to ask to move item number 2221 off of the consent agenda?
Before I ask to do that, I just want to make sure that council is giving us correct information so that we don't make a mistake. When we voted on accepting the agenda, it was just the agenda for the evening. I think it's my understanding that once you've asked for public participation on something that isn't on the agenda, someone may come up and say what they please. Then they would have to wait for something that would be on the agenda, which in this case is on consent. Therefore, I don't know whether or not when we voted on to approve the agenda, what we're going to do this evening is to whether we're actually approving the consent agenda. And if we did not, and we will now go to that point, then I think someone should move to take this item off, and we can at least address this gentleman's concern. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer.
Chair, Commission, I'm not sure I understand the question. So my previous impression when I gave my first advice was that we'd already voted to accept the consent agenda, which would approve the item that was on the consent agenda. However, that wasn't done yet. So it can be right now voted to remove the item off the consent agenda, to address that in a open hearing, and you guys can have that discussion about that. That's the choice by the commission.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so I will consider a motion to remove item number 1 from the consent agenda for discussion. Well, let's do that first and then.
All right, therefore, I make a motion that we take item number 1 from the consent agenda and move it to for discussion.
And this Commissioner Guerrero, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the agenda, the number 1 from the consent agenda. Anybody, any comment on that? Okay, can we take a vote?
Board Member Smith?
yes.
Board Member Guerrero?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, can you turn off your microphone? We must have too many on.
Okay, there we go. Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Chair Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so now before we move to the agenda, we're still on public participation. So is there anyone else who had something that they wanted to say that is not an agenda item before we go to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to the agenda and we will take up item number 1. Can I have a, pardon? Yeah, okay. Let's have a motion and a second for discussion and then we'll have the presentation.
I make a motion that we
Except,
accept the movement of the item and open for discussion.
I second.
okay. Is there a presentation?
Madam Chair, there is a presentation.
It looks like we're having technical difficulties. I'll go see if I can check with PIO because they have to open this up for us. I'll be right back.
Madam Chair, Commission, my name is John Castillo. I'm a planner with the City of Las Cruces. Tonight, we're bringing you a special use permit for 2221 Westgate Court. The current conditions, it's the south side of Westgate Court, which is about 175 feet east of the intersection of Westgate Street and north of Amador Avenue. The property as it sits right now is currently 0.91 acres. It's zoned M1, M2, which is our industrial standard, and it is 6,062 square feet of a building for a sexually oriented adult entertainment establishment. The current special use permit expired on July 25th of 2021. As you can see from the zoning map here, it is surrounded by M1, M2 zoning districts. Here's an aerial photo of the subject property. So the proposal is for an adult entertainment establishment special use permit, which expired on July 25th of 2020. This will allow for the continued and eventual completion of the adult entertainment establishment. The proposed SUP will follow all requirements for a SUP as outlined in Section 38-54 of the 2001 zoning code. This is the proposed building. It hasn't changed from the last time that we were here. And this is an elevation of it. This is what the building currently looks like as of 2019. As you can see, the property is just missing landscaping still and interior work to the shell building. This is, these photos were taken on August 21st of 2021. So the property meets all of the requirements for a special use permit, including distancing requirements. The required warning sign is being provided. Purchase the signs for no parking on Westgate. Building plans have been provided showing that the conditions of the original special use permit are being met. Public notice was sent out to all relevant agencies and departments. All supported the proposed special use permit. Notice was also sent out to the surrounding properties, and at the time of this presentation and staff report, staff did not receive any public input. Staff recommendation is approval based on the following. The subject property meets the distance separation requirements for any school, church, nursery, daycare, public park or recreational facility, residential zoning district, and liquor establishment. The proposed site design, screening and landscaping, and the proposed building design provide a compatible appearance with the surrounding industrial area. The SUP also follows all requirements for a special use permit as outlined in the section of the code. It also meets the purpose and intent requirements of the 2001 zoning code and all conditions of the original SUP 12-03, which have been met on the approved building permits and will be verified by the field and staff prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So today your options are to vote yes to approve, vote no to deny, vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
Thank you for that presentation. So the way we proceed here is that any of the commissioners who want to make comments or ask questions can do that now. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything about this, you know, the owner or anybody?
I do have a representative here.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, let's have that first. So I need to swear you in. What's your name?
Sarah Gonzalez.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you, Sarah.
Madam Chair and Commission, I'm representing the owners tonight because they unfortunately could not make it. Within the process, being this process has come through at least 4 special use permits.
Can you speak real closely to the microphone? It's hard to hear people with these masks. Sorry.
The property owners were not able to attend this evening, so however, I am representing them. The current state of the building is probably about 3 months from completion. During the time that COVID hit, they actually had a full staff that was working, and then unfortunately, they're having a very hard time getting more people to come back to work to actually complete the building. They are working on basically all of their finals at this point in time. So within that, their 2-year timeframe that they would have for this special use permit should get them through the process to finally be complete. Throughout the process, they've had some difficulties. They did run into some issues with their construction plans where they did have to dig up some of the electrical wire because of the time frame of how long it's taken. So they had to redo that work and then complete the rest of it. So at this point, they should be on schedule to finish within this special use permit timeframe.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Commissioners, any questions or comments? Okay, do we have anybody in the public who wants to speak? Yeah, the gentleman who brought this up, did you want to make a statement?
I just wanted a presentation.
Okay, then I guess we'll have a vote.
Board Member Smith?
Yes, it meets requirements of a special use permit.
Board Member Guerrero?
I vote yes, as well meets requirements and as well as staff recommendation.
Board Member Vega?
I also vote yes based on staff recommendation and it meeting all the requirements.
Board Member Gordon?
Based on my site visits and finding and staff recommendation, my knowledge of previous hearings before this item, I do vote yes.
Chairperson Thomas?
I vote yes, staff recommendation, previous discussions about this project, site visit. Pass 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item, we've missed old business. Did we have any old business? It says none. I don't think there is any. So going on to new business, the first item is the Brown Road infill development.
Chairperson, you forgot your consent agenda, your second one.
Oh,
on
sorry.
there.
There's one item left on the consent agenda. So I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Yeah, Commissioner Guerrero, make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second?
Commissioner Smith, I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? Vote.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Guerrero?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes?
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Chairperson Thomas?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to new business. I need a motion to approve the 550 Brown Point infill development project.
I make a motion that we approve item number 1 under new business, 550 Brown Road infill development.
Commissioner
Second.
Smith, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the Brown Road infill development. Is there a presentation?
Yes, ma'am. You have someone in the audience who's...
I can't hear what they're saying. I object. We have to have the presentation first, and then we have discussion.
A point of order, just for clarification, I think the concern is that there was a motion and the audience member didn't understand. There hasn't been a vote. There will be a presentation by staff. There will be any sort of presentation by the applicant, questions by the commission, and then ultimately it'll be open to the public for any commentary, and then the vote will take place. Does that clarify your concerns, Madam?
We always start with putting the motion up for discussion, and then we have the presentations, and then there's an order we follow, and we will come to public input. So thank you for being here.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Vincent Benegas, interim planner for community development. I have the opportunity to present 550 Brown Road, which is an infill development proposal. Its current conditions are as follows. The property is zoned R1A. In fact, it's within a neighborhood that's predominantly R1A. It does fall within the infill overlay district and is located on the north side of Brown Road between Main Street and South Melendres Street. The property is currently developed, but presently unoccupied, and that's been the situation for approximately 5 years now. The property is also plus or minus 14,000 square feet, or 0.321 acres in size, and as indicated, predominantly R1A surrounds the subject property. There are two properties on the south side of Brown along that same street segment that currently has zoning in place of O1C. The C referring to a condition on those two pieces that requires professional office uses only. And that was carried out through a rezoning action back in 1985 pursuant to Ordinance 621. The zoning map, which is shown, reflects the property in question. Here is that property. Again, R1A zoning, significant area around the subject property, and the O1C properties that I mentioned are located here. You have, obviously, to the east of Main Street, several properties that are zoned commercial in varying intensities, either C2 or C3, and then some additional office and commercial properties further south along Main Street from the subject property, and in this case, Brown Road. An aerial view or shot of the subject property, again, seeing a lot of the residential neighborhood that is in place. You do have Oregon View Place, which intersects Brown Road here, and then South Melendres, of course, on the west side, Main Street on the east. There is an alleyway, which will be mentioned later in the presentation, as providing access to the little dwelling or casita in the back, which will be utilized pursuant to this proposal and will allow access for parking for that unit alone. So as indicated, the property was residential in use, primary and guest dwelling or casita up till about 5 years ago when it became vacant. The applicant is interested in the property and that the current location where they are at, where they are conducting the business that they want to move to this location, is simply not conducive to the business function. It's too noisy. It doesn't lend itself to being more tranquil, if you will, in terms of masseuse or massage therapy and or yoga. So the applicant is seeking the IDP for the business. They did carry out early notification of the neighborhood as required in the zoning code when there's opportunity for debate amongst the neighbors. And of those providing commentary, one protested the request, but it's my understanding others favored the proposal, and the applicant's representative can elaborate on that. So the IDP also, as indicated in your packet, would include a yoga studio and massage therapy as indicated in the primary structure. There are two structures on the property. I'll show you a site plan here briefly. That'll show the two structures in question. The business owner is to occupy the casita in the rear and become an active resident on the property. So that is a plus in terms of interaction with the neighborhood. The yoga studio class schedule is Monday through Saturday. In fact, the same goes for massage therapy. The difference being the hours of operation. Yoga goes from 9 to 8, and massage therapy goes from 9 to 6. There will be multiple classes of the yoga studio per day, but no more than 10 yogis participating, and that's if full attendance is realized. Class size is obviously dependent on attendance. And in terms of therapy, massage therapy, it's by appointment, but there will be, at least as proposed, 3 tables for the conduct of massage. There will be both on-site and off-site parking used to accommodate the parking demand for this set of uses, and there are parking substitutions as authorized by the zoning code in order to meet parking demand. There was a request to deviate from the typical standard involved in surfacing of the parking lot. In this case, they are wanting to do a compacted gravel surface. Compacting the gravel will help keep the gravel in place, but part of the reason for this is, again, to kind of retain some neighborhood feel and not necessarily put asphalt or concrete to the extent necessary to carry out the parking demand. And the one exception is anything related to the ADA required stall, the loading area, and the accessible route to the building. All that will have to be paved on a hard, acceptable surface pursuant to law. There's also a request to be allowed one attached wall sign, approximately 12 square feet in size. That is typically not allowed in an R1 district, particularly in that it will be advertising business activities on site. And one thing that staff found accommodating is the sense that right now the site has very little landscaping in place, but they are willing to follow the 15% rule that's authorized or are mandated in the design standards for new businesses, and so they will be under that same stipulation and agreeable to do so. The intent is to add landscaping to the site to help it blend in with the neighborhood, and a large portion of that landscaping will be brought up front to further shield, if you will, or buffer the parking area from view. An additional aspect to that is there's a little wall right now, which you'll see in a little bit, that exists. It will be modified in order to allow for the access or curb cut for the parking, but that'll remain in place, or the wall, most of the wall, to further shield the parking area. So again, the deviations in the R1 standard, the use, you're allowed 1 residential unit. As requested, it'll be 1 residential unit and 2 non-residential uses. A paved parking lot, code requires concrete, asphalt pavers, or other suitable hard surface, and in this case, we'll be seeking, or the applicant will be seeking compacted gravel. And in terms of signage, again, no general commercial signage allowed in the R1A zone, very limited, and in this case, 2x6 wall sign. Couple of photos of the property. The first one on the left shows a direct shot of the subject property right now. This is the wall in question. The wall will be widened, at least the opening will be widened in order to allow access to the proposed parking area right behind the wall. But what will remain will help shield from view the parking area. The one in the middle is a little bit offset to the east, just showing you the main or primary building and a little wall that shields, my understanding, some of the dumpsters or garbage containers from site. And then the one on the right, far right, is to the rear of the property. You have the casita closest to view. That will be occupied by the business owner, and then you see the main dwelling, which will be modified for yoga instruction and massage therapy. Couple of shots of the neighborhood. This is the neighbor directly west of the subject property. Heavily landscaped trees, etc., residential use. Middle shot is looking down, I believe it's Oregon Vista, I think. The intersecting street that I mentioned, again showing residential. I'm sorry, that's looking west on Brown. Sorry about that. And the one on the right is also looking at 2 lots adjacent, that's further east of the subject property, showing that there is some remodeling going on in the neighborhood, but nonetheless, just wanted to get some of those images in place there. This slide shows the site plan that we are talking about tonight. Again, to the rear of the property where the arrow is currently located, you have the alley that's directly in back of the lot. That alley will provide access to these 2 stalls, parking stalls. The 2 stalls will service the casita use only. And then you have the main dwelling, what I refer to the main dwelling being converted, if approved, into the yoga studio and massage therapy area. Your parking is going to be located here in the front. Behind that wall, you see the new drive pad being opened up here to allow access to the property. You have most of the parking on site as proposed, and there are 2 on-street stalls being proposed. When you combine the on-site with the 2 off-site and the trade-offs allowed pursuant to code, you meet the complete parking demand, including that for the residential uses in back. The existing curb cut located on the easternmost side of the property in front, that will be closed off so that there is no conflict. And again, that new drive pad will be opened up towards more front and center of the property. This is a snapshot of the sign they're seeking to utilize, 2 by 6 in size, and they are looking to put it on the wall, as I understand, in front. Another avenue could be to attach it to the building in front. But my understanding is the little wall. So reviews were sent to all relevant agencies and departments. There were no significant issues identified. In fact, anything that was considered conditional was easily accepted by the applicant. Notice to the property owners was sent August 9th, and as of 8/24, staff received 1 email, 1 phone call, both protesting the case and citing neighborhood conflict and further introduction of non-residential uses in the neighborhood. I placed on your desk 1 letter of support. That was from the early notification effort. I apologize I didn't add that to your packet, but I wanted you to have it for reference purposes. And the representative, when she speaks, can probably talk more about any other contacts she's been having with the residents to see if there's any more input. So the recommendation for this case is approval. Primarily, the property has been vacant and is now eligible for the IDP, I should say underutilized and eligible for the IDP. It falls within the urban place type, which, to paraphrase, encourages a variety of residential housing types and areas supporting neighborhood commercial development. That's one of the key things that I think this proposal is trying to do. As when staff discussed it, that was also cited as a reason for support. It also encourages adaptive reuse of residential properties, including live-work. Again, it's been vacant for 5 years, so this is a means to get property back into active use. And it encourages reinvestment within older areas of the city through redevelopment. All those are within the Elevate comprehensive plan and either policies or strategies that are identified to support the recommendation. And finally, it meets the intent of Elevate Las Cruces, as I just said, but also in a purpose and intent of the zoning code and the city's infill policy plan, and meets the purpose of the Las Cruces Municipal Code in terms of the powers of this commission in hearing this type of case. Your options this evening are to vote yes and approve. You can vote no and deny. If you vote no, you'll need to come up with your own findings and that the presentation has spoken in favor of it and provided recommendations to that effect or support to that effect. You can vote yes with conditions or vote to table. And that, Madam Chair, completes staff presentation.
Thank you very much. And is there anybody here from the owner or anyone else who wants to add? Oh, the same representative. Okay, we already swore you in, right?
Yes, Madam Chair. Sarah Gonzalez for the record once again. I am the representative for the property owners, and the business owner is here as well. To reiterate what staff has presented, we were required to send out early notification, and with that, I only received 2 phone calls. One phone call was in support, which is the email in which you have received in front of you this evening, and the second was not in support, being that it would continue to elaborate with the commercial uses moving into these residential districts. One thing I want to iterate is that with it being an infill, that means the property zoning does not change. If this land use does not work for this neighborhood, if it doesn't work for this business owner, the property still remains residential. It hasn't changed to a commercial zoning. It doesn't allow for someone else to come in and impede on these neighbors by providing, as explained, lawyers' offices or a pharmacy, some other commercial use that may be more intense or as opposed to being intense. Being that this is appointment-based only, there are 3 techs that work within the site. They would have 3 clients at most, and maybe not even at the same time. Yoga is basically you have a class that you get to do, and maybe 10 at the most. You're looking at maybe 6 to 8, but depending on people's work schedule, I work all day. I can't go during those day hours, but it provides to other people who may be able to. Some of the exceptions we made was adding that additional bicycle parking. The idea is now you can walk to a service, you can ride to that service, and you can drive to a service. We need to implement more of these services within these residential districts so you don't have to drive somewhere. Sometimes you just want to go down the street because it's there. If it was more impactful, I could understand that, but being that these are low-intensity, appointment-based, reserved classes, they're not as intenseful as if you bring in major commercial businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the commissioners here?
Yeah.
Commissioner Villegas?
Hi, yes, Commissioner Guerrero. Mine's not a question or a comment. So I drove by the property because I was really curious, because I know the area and I was really, really curious. So I'm excited to see that there is infill, and hoping that this starts a trend of bringing more businesses to mixed-use neighborhoods. But I did find it interesting that there didn't seem to be, at least that I noticed, like any other businesses in the area. Main Street is like literally a block away. So, I just hope that this is a good decision for the business owner and a good location. And that was all I wanted to comment on.
Commissioner Smith, I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Smith?
I have resided on South Melendres for 21 years. I'm near the corner of Brown and Melendres. I'm very familiar with this site and this property. This neighborhood has been a mixed-use neighborhood for quite a while. There was a construction office just 4 buildings down from me. EBIT is down the street, closer to Amador. I'm very, very familiar with the amount of traffic that goes through that neighborhood. And that section of Brown, there will be very minimal impact from a traffic standpoint because there's a lot of traffic that already flows through there. So I believe that the impact that this business would have in this part of the neighborhood would be very minimal. And like I said, that's based on my experience of living near this neighborhood for 21 years.
Any more comments from commissioners? Okay, how many people in the public would like to comment? Could I see a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you can have 3 minutes each. Let's start on this side. There was nobody in the first row. Second row on this side.
Is it possible to take my mask off to talk?
Sure, yeah, that would be helpful. We could probably hear you better.
It's very difficult.
And your name is?
My name is Teresa Shannon Stevenson.
Okay, do you swear and affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to offer our comments. I did call the zoning and planning when I received the letter from Ms. Gonzalez immediately and did express my very strong disapproval of this project and hoped, other people would, but I was assured.
Could you be just a little closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Yes, I was assured at the time that there would be a meeting, that we would receive a letter from the city, which we did, but I frankly had I known I was supposed to follow up that letter before appearing here with a phone call, with an email, what have you, I would have done that. And basically what we have been doing is talking to our neighbors about appearing tonight, you see. We didn't realize we had opportunity, more opportunity to express our feelings about this. I was born in the house that we own, my sisters and brothers and I own, sister and brother, on Oregon View. And so therefore, we've been in the neighborhood since 1946. My dad built the house. And we, frankly, are very strongly opposed to this project because this is a residential area. Now, I grant you that, as Mr. Smith pointed out, there is encroachment of commercial properties on Main Street. In fact, my grandfather's house is on Main Street and is a photography studio and appraisal, and it's it's great. Main Street is very busy, and that's a good thing to have there. But for us, and for the neighbors that will speak also, this is a very quiet area. I read over all of the infill documents going back to 1991. And I understand that this is, the idea is to revitalize, older places, or to, in this case, underutilized properties or vacant properties that could be used for something else. However, given the current residential market, I think that the people who own this property, and it's not the owners of the business, it's 550, 550 Brown LLC. And I had the great pleasure of talking with Mr. O'Connell, who's the owner of the property, about his idea here and understand where he's coming from. And this notion of a quaint little neighborhood that you could then, we'll start here. Here's a good anchor. And then, somebody else moves out, so we buy another one, and then we're going to have the coffee shop over here. And pretty soon, the neighborhood is no longer a neighborhood. It's a quaint little place where people go to have coffee, or they stroll around.
Do we have the timer on here? Sorry.
Okay.
I'm told it's 3 minutes, so could you wrap up, please?
No, I can't wrap up. I live in this neighborhood, ma'am, And I'm here to make my case. Mr. Benegas took a great deal of time explaining how this was all set in stone almost. And I don't think it should be set in stone. Mr. O'Connell, who owns the property, explained that he would be happy to work with us, okay?
So thank you. We will let everybody else have their time, and if there's...
I have one more
and
thing.
You may come back after the other people have spoken, but everybody gets equal time to begin with.
Okay, that would be great. I will be back. Thank you.
Anybody else on this side? On the right-hand side? My right-hand side? On the left-hand side? Okay, this is one to the third row on the end. Oh, do you want to start?
Hello. I just wanted to say,
Well, I need to have your name, and then I need to swear you in.
all right, my name is Ms. McFarland.
And do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate what she said. I'm not as well read as she is and don't have as much information, but I've lived in that neighborhood since my children were 3 months old, and they're now in their 60s, so quite a while. And we want it residential, not business. There are places all over town where she can massage all she wants to, and I may have, in fact, I have a relative who is a chiropractor, and they might like to have a massage therapist in their office, which she might look into. So there are lots of places for business, but this is residential. We want it residential, and we will fight to keep it residential. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the third row. Anybody in the fourth row on this side? Yes, you want to come down? And your name is?
My name is Pamela Angel.
Hi, Pamela. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Yes, first I'd like to say that I respect the opinions of my neighbors. I live at 559 Brown Road. It's across the street in Catty Corner. So I do respect the people that I live among in this neighborhood, but I do support the project. I think that infill is a great idea for cities, such as Las Cruces. I did see this property sit for 5 years abandoned and have people move in and crash there, people who are homeless. I did see what happens a lot with realtors and is when a property's sold or they're trying to sell it, all of the landscape, it was a beautiful property. It was owned by a dentist and his wife. They parked on the street for many years. And after the dentist died and the property went for sale, it was abandoned for, 5 years. And all of the trees, all of the rose bushes, everything died, which I think is just a shame that nobody bothers to water or keep that vibrant. But I do think that it would be kind of cool to have a yoga studio and a massage therapy place in my neighborhood. I do understand the importance of having a residential neighborhood, but I do think that this would be low impact. I wouldn't want to see a cannabis dispensary or other kinds of businesses. I think somebody was wanting a criminal defense law office there. But I think this would be quite low impact and really add to the character of the neighborhood. So I've lived there 22 years, and I'm not concerned about it getting spam on my phone. I'm not concerned about, the property value of my own property because I hope to live there throughout my whole life. But I do really respect the people that have lived there longer in the neighborhood and what their input is to you as well. But I wanted to say I think it would be kind of exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next in row 4.
Esther Perez.
Say your name again.
Esther Perez, P-E-R-E-Z.
Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I so swear.
Thank you.
I have lived on Oregon View Avenue, just so you know, it's not a place. I don't know why it's Avenue, because it's only this long, but for 12 years. I purchased my home because it is in a neighborhood. There's not a lot of traffic. There is, now Brown Road's getting super busy already, and I really feel like this would have a major impact on the number of vehicles, not only on Brown Road, but on my street, which we barely have enough parking for the people who live there. I don't need more people parking on my road. I also do not feel that, well, I want to say, I love yoga and I love massage. I'm putting that out there. But the parking spaces that would be placed in the house would not necessarily make it residential anymore. Once this was no longer a business, having 8 parking spaces in the front of the house would not make it be a residence. So, just saying.
Thank you. Is anyone else in that row? Row 4? The next row, row 5, is anyone in that row?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
And your name is?
My name is Justin Weaver.
And do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, again, my name is Justin Weaver. I'm a resident of 1011 Oregon View Avenue. Just a little bit about myself. I attained a 4-year bachelor's degree in architecture design with a specialty in urban development. This was through Texas Tech. I am also a licensed GB98 contractor. I also partake in a lot of commercial developments. I would have had a whole lot better presentation put together for you guys had I would have known I was given this opportunity. I'd like to go ahead and start with a petition that I circulated at actually 7 a.m. this morning. I got it out to 10 of my neighbors. I was actually able to get 6 of them back within that short period of time today. All of these are in opposition of this proposed development. Okay, number 1, disturbing the quiet peacefulness of our neighborhood. Number 2, reduced resale marketability and value to us homeowners. 3, inadequacy of building property to service commercial needs required by Las Cruces Building Code. If rezoned commercial as a neighborhood, we have no say what it's going to be in the future. We have a yoga studio this year. We could have a methadone clinic next year. Last but not least, neighborhood streets are not designed to handle increased traffic. They're proposing off-street traffic with this being a commercial development that would require an engineered traffic study. I don't think that was performed. I also, unfortunately, I have small things for my presentation, but Oregon View is just simply not designed to handle increased traffic. It is a dead-end street. It is not a cul-de-sac. It does not allow for proper transfer or in and out of vehicles. That being said, all my neighbors behind me, including myself, we're going to be now, our driveways are going to be used as a point of turning in and out and around for traffic use. sorry. Right now, it's residential. The rest of the stuff that's around there is zoned 01C. So with this Elevate, proposal, keeping it residential, this isn't really conducive to what we want in our neighborhood. This pretty much, with what my neighbor said earlier, it starts with an anchor. We have a yoga studio now, then we have a coffee shop. Then we've completely lost the quaint, quietness of our neighborhood, which I love my neighborhood. I absolutely love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors. Most of them are elderly. I'm one of the youngest people in the neighborhood.
30 seconds.
Excuse me, I probably would have been a whole lot more prepared had I would have known that I would have been able to give this presentation. But simply, there's 13 occupancies proposed. There's 10 yogas. If the 3 massage tables were open, that's 13 occupants. Let's say all 13 occupants took their car. Where are they going to park? There's only 8 parking stalls. Where are the other 5 occupants going to park? That's my question. There's so many things that I could have, ADA, as far as the gravel being acceptable, why aren't we keeping the parking lot standards with what's around if we're trying to be with a continuance of the commercial and everything else that's going on with that area? Lastly, they're going to be using the alleyway to access the residential property in the back. That alleyway is not for traffic use. That alleyway is for service use only. Now we're going to be talking about traffic going in and out, where we already have problems with homeless people, people from everything else coming through the alleys.
Okay, we've come to 3 minutes, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
And who was our first speaker? Did you want to, we have one more? Yeah, do you want to come back up? You can have 2 more minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you in the back. Please come up.
My name is Stanley Engle, E-N-G-L-E.
Thank you. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so with all due respect to my neighbors as well, I live on El Prado Street, almost directly behind the studio. Initially, I was very opposed to the project, but the presentation swayed me the other way. My only concern would be the traffic, and as the gentleman over there brought up, parking, because I have a young child who, Melendrez is not very safe, nor is Main Street, so that would be my only concern with this project. I do believe that we need to have businesses that service neighborhoods that are closer, that do not require us to get into a single occupancy vehicle and drive halfway across town just to do something. So I support local businesses. I support small coffee shops. Of course, this is not a coffee shop. And I do believe from the presentation, again, it swayed me that this is not going to be high impact as long as the parking situation is not out of control. Again, that is literally my only complaint, or traffic, that it increases traffic on Melendrez more than it already is, and Melendrez desperately needs some speed control. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, has everyone who wanted to speak spoken once? Okay, and yes.
Madam Chair, I do want to point out that the business owner is also present in case there are questions directly for the business owner as well.
Would the business owner like to make any statements at this time? I can't hear you. Okay, you want her to go first and then you'll speak? Thank you.
I do want to point out a couple of problems that I saw with Ms. Gonzalez's letter, after speaking with the owner of the property, that he explained to me that the business owner would not be in residence on the property. They're not the owners of the property, they're owners of the business only. So that's an inaccuracy that I think is worth pointing out. And also, in reading, going back to my reading of the infill development philosophy, I believe that it was actually begun as a way of providing affordable housing for vacant or underused land. And this is like flipping that on its head. You're going to take a residential area and bring in a small business. And as Esther pointed out, once you put in this parking area, there are very few people who are going to say, oh, that looks like a great place for my family to live. So I would like you to consider those things. Do you have a yoga studio in your neighborhood currently? Mr. Smith, I'm glad you're here because you have seen the encroachment of the commercial all around us. And I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, if I have a quiet neighborhood, is that such a bad thing? Okay, that's my concern. If the infill is used properly, and by the way, in this current climate of real estate, Mr. O'Connell could sell that property in a heartbeat. And as a matter of fact, 2 places on Brown Road sold within days of being put on the market because people are wanting to move to Las Cruces now. You know, this infill came about in the 90s and forward to address the problem of slow growth. Also, there are 4 yoga studios in the downtown area already, and there are many, many vacant commercial properties that could be used for a yoga studio massage therapy. In fact, there are some on the east side of Main Street. If you go on Brown Road, if you've driven over there, you know the area. You hit Main Street, you go on the other side, there are quite a few vacant properties there. So I hope that, you know, when you have your vote, you will
30
consider the
seconds.
neighbors and what our needs and wants are as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any comments, final comments up here from people on the, is there one more person? Pardon? Oh, did you want to speak too now? Okay, again, I need to swear you in, so.
I'm the owner of the Fifth Element, and my name is Michelle Coyle.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do. My name is Rose LeDuc. I own Rose LeDuc LMT, located at the Fifth Element Arts and Healing Center.
And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to start off by saying that first and foremost, I completely understand and respect all of the concerns of the neighbors in this neighborhood. And if we are able to move forward with our business going here, we have every intention to completely respect these people's homes and neighborhood that they love. I think that a lot of these concerns that people have with our business being there, we actually side with these concerns in order for our business to function the way that we need it to be successful. These neighbors love their neighborhood because it's quiet, and that's what we need to function as our business. We've been in business for 3 years, and we have functioned in commercial places, and it has really hindered us from flourishing as a business because of the type of services we provide. We're not a commercial business, and it makes it really hard to succeed as a massage therapy business with yoga classes offered when there's noise, when there's, the current place that we're at, we have our own parking lot, but we're surrounded by apartments and they take up our parking spaces. And so we completely understand those concerns, and we want to do everything that we can to not only not have to deal with that ourselves, but we don't want to create that problem for anyone either. I know that one of the concerns was the parking because, we estimated 10 people for yoga classes, and then we have 3 therapists who can see 3 clients at once. So now there's more than 8 parking spaces, but we don't function that way because we are having to create a quiet space for our yoga and massage. To start, we will only have 1 to 2 classes a week at most as far as yoga, and those classes have to be scheduled outside of when we see clients. So if we have a yoga class, that is the only thing that will be taking, that'll be the only thing happening at that time. Versus if we're taking clients, we're only seeing clients. We're never gonna have a class and a full house of clients at the same time. That's just it's not really possible to do that within the space that we have. I think Rose has some things that she wants to.
I just wanted to add to that as well. I know that it being a residential area, like Miss Michelle said, it's very quiet there. We also want to work on preserving the area. I understand it is a historic location, and we don't want to do anything that would make it to seem like if it is this big commercial business, we're not going to be having it's not like a fast food restaurant where we have this high volume of traffic coming in and out. Our focus is going to be on 1 client at a time. When they're coming, they're there for at least an hour. It's very minimal contact, and we think that it will keep low traffic, and we want to just keep it beautiful. One thing I want everyone to consider also is that we don't want to rezone the entire neighborhood as well, because I totally understand the concern of that pouring into these other parts. We don't want that. That's exactly why we're choosing this location. And another thing is that we are a quiet business, so I think if any business would be utilizing this space, I think it would be suitable for us to be in the area. And
And I just want to touch on what she was talking about too. I know some of the concerns of the neighbors. They enjoy that the neighbors of the neighborhood are actually taking the time to beautify their homes. They're making their neighborhood look more beautiful, look more welcoming, creating a peaceful place in their neighborhood. And we want that too. We want to make this house that's been abandoned for 5 years, we want it to be beautiful and be a good place for people to see, for the neighbors to come and take a part of.
I think the goal is just to be able to say that, hey, there's a massage therapy business down the street, instead of that we're hindering on the neighborhood at all. It's hopefully would increase the value by offering this luxury service within walking distance, and just hope that we can be more accessible to our clients being centrally located. I think it would really be inviting more people to come that maybe otherwise wouldn't be able to, so.
And then also just to touch on the concern of if we're approved to be here, when will it stop? Is this whole neighborhood going to be taken over by commercial businesses? And as I said, we side with the neighbors on that. If we're allowed to be here, I want to ask that the city takes that into consideration as more businesses want to do that, because if more businesses go into this neighborhood, it just totally it just rejects why we're there in the first place. We need it to be quiet. We need low traffic. We want a place where the neighbors feel like they have a community center to go if they want to participate in our classes, if they need a place of healing, if they need a service. We want to offer that to them in a positive note. And if we're allowed to proceed with this, I just want to let all the neighbors know that our door is always open for communication. We want to be mutable and flexible to the neighborhood to make sure that even though we have the things that we need to do to flourish as a business, we never want to be a problem for the people in the neighborhood. And if there's anything that we're doing, anything that we're not doing to make sure that these people's lives in their peaceful home is not being, disturbed, we want to do that. We want to cater to whatever needs and concerns people have, because we just don't want to be a problem. We do want our business to succeed. We have been stuck in a rut of not being able to find an affordable location. I don't know if anyone in the audience or here has ever owned a business, but it's not easy. It's not easy to start from square one. It's not easy to make it through coronavirus, shutdowns, and I really believe that this space would not only let us flourish as a business, but we're finally in a place as a business that we are so ready to give back to our community and so ready to give back to who has supported us along the way. And we really believe that this space is everything that we need to do that for ourselves and the neighborhood and the community.
I also want to add that I think for us moving into the building, we can promise the community something that maybe a residential neighbor wouldn't be able to, and that is that we are a quiet business and we will promise to keep everything totally undisruptive, and our purpose is to just enhance everything. So I just wanted to acknowledge everybody here as well that consider maybe you can't pick your neighbors, so you never know who could move in, and you wouldn't have an option to raise those concerns maybe. And now that we're kind of opening the conversation, I just hope that we can reassure you that we promise that we are a quiet business, and that's something that you're not going to get from a residential neighbor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your concern for the neighbors and taking the time to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Okay, we'll move now, return to the commissioners. Any last comments? Okay, Commissioner Guerrero.
Yeah, I have a comment. And first of all, I want to thank everybody that came and spoke for and against. I can tell you guys are really passionate about your neighborhood, and that's really moving. When we talk about infill and when we talk about having mixed-use neighborhoods and stuff like that, those are actually the things that people are looking into when it comes to moving into a city. I understand that some of you have lived there for many, many years, and that's amazing. But also, we are a city that's changing. Las Cruces is growing. You go to El Paso and there's neighborhoods that are mixed everywhere. You go to other cities like Portland or Seattle, or not that we're as big as that, or maybe we will never get to that big in our lifetime. But those are the things that people are looking when they're looking into moving into an urban area. I will say, however, this for me, this is kind of a hard one, because I understand, when you've lived in a place that's quiet for so many years, and then you have some, you start having business moving in, and then that increases traffic. That's definitely hard. Like, that's not what you signed up for when you bought your house. So, I just want you all to know that, when we look at these kind of cases, we look at it through the lens of ourselves as well. So, I just wanted to make that comment and just, thank you all for being here and for your participation. That's what's great about city government, is being able to participate. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner Smith.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes. Although I am part of this commission, I am a resident of the city of Las Cruces, and I happen to be a resident of South Melendres, near the corner of Brown and Melendres. And I think it's important to point out that Oregon View Avenue, it is a quaint street, but it's just one street in the neighborhood. South Melendrez is part of the neighborhood. Brown Street is part of the neighborhood. El Prado, as a gentleman in the back, he resides there, that's part of the neighborhood. And Oregon View has had the special blessing of being tucked away in the corner, in some ways sheltered from the changes that have happened on Melendrez and Brown. I've lived there for 21 years, and I have personally sat in my kitchen and watched vehicles travel up to 80 miles per hour on that street. I have personally sat in my kitchen at my table and watched accidents happen on the corner of Brown and Melendrez. I have personally sat in my kitchen and watched homeless people cross the street, almost getting hit by traffic on a regular basis. And if the residents of Oregon View would admit, they know how much traffic and how much change has come to that neighborhood. It is not as quaint and quiet as it may have been 50 years ago. I happen to live across the street from a rental duplex where a young man plays his music loudly every day. And I believe the people in Oregon View have heard that music many, many times and have not said anything or complained about it. So I understand that you have this street, and it is a wonderful street. I have a close friend that lives on that street, and it is a little bit of a sanctuary tucked back there. And this type of business, this yoga business, will be a quiet business. It's not going to be a bar. It's not going to be some type of store that's going to have high traffic. They will be parking mostly inside the property of the resident, maybe 2 vehicles on the street. There may be an occasion where someone may turn and miss the building and have to turn around. That's not going to happen. That happens on any given day. So I feel that I respect greatly the opposition to this proposal. However, the minimal impact on Oregon View Place and in the corner of Brown and Oregon View will not be significant, because I, on South Melendrez, have seen the amount of traffic and how dense the traffic flows through between Amador and Main, and that is the impact. So I just feel that, as a resident of that street, I feel I have a special insight into what this business would actually bring. Thank you.
Commissioner Gordon?
I do recognize the comments of my 2 fellow commissioners. I think that they're right on track. But I do have a question which may help the problem a little bit, which people are concerned about. Mr. Benegas, could you please come back to the microphone? And Sarah, can you do that also, just in case I need you to? Could you please go on your presentation, the site plan? That's it. I do not have, it isn't broken down like a lot of blueprints that show how many feet or whatever, but the area that's in front of the trash, to the wall that goes down to the front of the property, that seems like quite a large open space. If you were to move the trash bin back, which looks like it can go back quite a considerable distance, and open that space in there for perhaps additional parking, maybe that would help take care of the problem of maybe what these residents are concerned about. I don't know. I'm just looking at this blank site plan. It doesn't really give you much information.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Gordon, just in looking at the site plan, I would, the parking stall spaces are 9 feet wide, so you're looking at roughly about 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 times 4 is 36, thank you. So roughly 36 feet from the front of the property line, maybe a little more to that wall. So you've got that much room to play with, but you're talking about pushing the dumpster back and the wall back as well? Is that what you're saying? And then if that's the case, then I'd have the representative speak to that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Gordon, one of the concerns would then be is if we eliminate that space and add additional parking, you have now removed the landscaping from the property. At most, we were trying to maintain this property to be residential, which is why the request came in as gravel instead of asphalt. The applicant, which is the business owner, yes, is leasing the property from the property owner. At this point, they have no problem paving the parking lot, but we wanted to keep it as much as possible to look residential. If you leave the property, this business does not succeed in some way or decides to find a different location, and you leave, you now have a landscaped front area as opposed to a paved parking lot. That's how you maintain residential districts. It would be no different. If we remove that space to where the landscaping is going to be placed in the front, you've now removed all the landscaping in the front of the property. And so now it looks like this big giant parking lot, which is not the intent that we're trying to accomplish here. We still want it to look as if it's a residential home.
Okay, thank you, sir. I can understand that. It was just a thought I had while looking at it. It doesn't really describe exactly what is going to be in that space. It's just open space. And if that's the case, I'm definitely in favor of doing landscaping. I want this to look as nice as possible. I'm not looking to make it just look like a flat-out industrial project. So just to leave it for landscaping is fine with me. I just wondered if there was some way we might be able to just add a couple more spaces. So in that case, I again think that this is a wonderful project. I think it will add to the area. It isn't the kind of business that's going to create any noise. So it should work out very nicely. I think the neighborhood will, in the end, will be very pleased.
Any more commissioner comments? I just want to add that I also think it will add to the neighborhood, and it's the kind of business that we really want to see in some of these infill areas, and we're not rezoning the whole area. This is just a small infill project. Can we have a vote?
Board Member Smith?
I vote yes, based on it supports the home employment opportunities, and it also meets the criteria for Elevate Las Cruces comprehensive plan.
Board Member Guerrero?
I will vote yes, based again on infill, site visit, and Elevate Las Cruces, and as well. Again, this is a low-density business, so I just feel like it is an appropriate business for the neighborhood.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes. I travel up and down Melendres daily. The idea of being able to feel safe riding my bike to get to this location would be really ideal. And I do hear what everyone's saying. I also live on North Melendres, and the amount of foot traffic, vehicle traffic, things that I'm just, it's never a dull moment, to say the least, when you're on Melendres. And that can be all times of day. And a project like this seems like a nice little escape from the two monstrosity traffic areas that are Main and Melendres. So with that said, based on site visit, staff recommendation, and that it supports Elevate Las Cruces, I vote yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Based on my site visit, this project will meet the infill requirements. I go along with staff recommendations. It does comply with Elevate Las Cruces, our comprehensive plan. And again, I do think that this will be a nice project in the end. I think that people will be happy with. In that case, I definitely vote yes.
Chairperson Thomas?
I also vote yes. I'm happy to see an example of live work that we can have in our city for others to see and emulate, and based on staff recommendations and Elevate Las Cruces. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now we're ready for our last item. Can I have a motion to approve? What number are we on?
Motion to approve item number 2. The East Lomond Development Plan?
Thank you. Are you making that motion?
Yes, motion.
Okay,
Motion to approve, item number 2.
Is there a second?
It's Commissioner Smith, that second.
Thank you. Okay, presentation.
Good evening, members of the commission. This is Catherine Harrison Rogers, for the record, senior planner with the department. I'm here just to introduce Site Southwest, our consultants who assisted in developing this plan for the city. This is the East Lomond Development Plan. This is the area that is near the hospital at East Lomond. You have that large vacant parcel that is to the south of the hospital. It's generally in that area, and I'm going to introduce our consultants with Site Southwest. We have Danielle Wilson, who is on the line. We also have George Radnovich, who is also here to speak to this, and we have staff, myself and Mark Miller, to answer any questions from the city's standpoint. So with that, I will turn it over.
Good evening, Commissioners. Do you mind if I take my mask off? Thank
No,
you.
that's fine. It's much easier to hear you.
Thank you. This one is especially muffled. Thank you.
Okay, and can you state your name?
My name is George Radnovich, and I'm with Site Southwest. I'm one of the principals of the company.
And do you swear and affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think some of you have already seen this project in one form or another. We've been working on it for quite some time. And so tonight, our reason for being here is to request your recommendation to the City Council to adopt the development plan. And so what I'm going to do is go through a shortened version of some of the slideshows we've done in the past. And then I'll be here, and so will Danny, for any questions, and also so will Catherine and Mark. So can I run the slides myself? Great, thank you. Okay. So the agenda for tonight is really pretty basic. We're going to go through the process that we took to develop this plan. I'm going to tell you about the community engagement that we did, which was extensive, and then I'll overview the plan and the preferred plan from 3 that we developed, and then we'll talk about implementation of the plan and how it might be implemented by the city of Las Cruces. The development process started about, oh, sorry about that. The plan process started about a year ago, and this plan that's in front of you here is the project context. We always do one of those so we understand the neighborhoods surrounding a plan area. And the plan area is outlined in the let me see if I can point to it. I guess not, is in the dashed and dotted line that you see surrounding it. The main area that we looked at is the space that is open space right across from the Mountain View Medical Center. It's very close to a lot of open space, and as you know, there's going to be another piece of open space and recreation very nearby in the East Mesa Recreation Complex. It's also very close to the archery range and a number of other open space amenities like the large dam open space, which I believe is 800 acres in total. So what we tried to do is understand and to respect all of these spaces and how this community project would interact with it. We also looked at all of the existing plans that relate to this space, including Elevate Las Cruces, which is the most recent plan, and then the Active Transportation Plan in 2018, all the way down to, almost 20 years ago, or a little over 20 years ago, the Loman Avenue Development Plan, which really tried to make Loman more of a pedestrian-friendly street. And as you know, it's a very fast-paced, very fast traffic type of street.
We also looked at other developments in the area, or proposed developments, like Aggie Uptown, which is just down the road to the south. And we looked at the Mesilla Valley Mall, because it also is a village center in the Elevate Las Cruces plan. This is more zeroing in on the site, and all those colorful blobs that you see in front of you are representative of certain things we noticed about the site. We tried to make this plan walkable within a quarter mile or a 15-minute walk, and those circles represent what would be a 15-minute walk on that land if it were developed. Probably shorter if it weren't. The orange areas that are kind of in sort of lines and blobs along the north side and the south side are very steep terrain. So those are areas we wouldn't recommend developing in, and we're also recommending very little grading go on with the project. The last thing is there's a wonderful view of the Oregon Mountains, and that green line with the two arrows on it is representative of extending Foothills Drive to the kind of center of the development, and that we should take advantage of those views towards the Oregons. I did forget to mention one other thing. The kind of peach-colored line along the bottom is the south Little Dam Arroyo, and we're recommending that stay naturalized and even enhanced as part of the project area. And you'll see more of that as I go through this. We did a market study as part of the project, and what it showed us is that the project could probably develop to be about 20% retail, office, and hospitality, and I'll explain that a little more fully in a minute. About 50% missing middle residential, which is a more dense kind of residential, and then 30% detached housing. And the reason we're laying it out the way it is because we realize that there's detached housing south in the Canyon Estates area, and so we recommended in all of our plans that the detached residential be across the arroyo from that, very close to what's already detached residential. As I said, we had a lot of community input. The input was both with the community at large and with the business owners and residents of the neighborhoods surrounding the site. And so we had stakeholder meetings with the hospital, with other businesses. We involved developers in those meetings that might be interested in developing the site. We had work sessions with them and with the city and the public throughout the fall of last year. We developed a project website, and we update it regularly with all of the plans, including the event tonight. And we've had updated we had a vision survey as well, and I'll explain that a little more fully in a minute. But we opened up the plans to the public and asked them what they thought and what they thought the best parts about the plan and the worst parts about the plan were. And that took place from December 3rd, 2020 to January 13th. So we really tried hard to hear from the community. And then we had a community charrette, and at that charrette we literally spent, and it was a virtual charrette because of the pandemic, but we spent 3.5 days, working on the plan and asking the public what they thought, and we had successional public meetings for those 3 days in a row. So that was really great, and we got a lot of input from the public, and I think most of it was pretty positive. So the poll results were based on, so we took a poll as well, and the poll results were based on these three plans. So we came up with these three plans based on what we'd heard from the public and from the stakeholders and from the business owners in the surrounds. And one of the plans concentrates on population health. It's a healthy village concept, so very walkable, focus on health-related activities and health-related businesses. For instance, businesses that would dovetail well with Mountain View. The second one was more of a traditional neighborhood. I'll call it a new urbanist neighborhood, but very gridded, kind of like downtown in a way, with a main street and a promenade down the middle. And then we had a conservation neighborhood, which was really intended to conserve all of the arroyos, the open spaces, and really integrate the environment into the multiple use housings and housing and retail and health and civic spaces. So we showed that to the neighborhoods, and these are some of the results from all of those. This was on a 1 to 5 kind of rating approach, and 5 being they really liked it, and 1 being not so much. And you can see that the pedestrian village idea, the idea of a micromobility loop, and I'll go over that in a little while, the idea of that terraced entry along the north side of the property, and the idea of habitat preservation were all really strong, and as was the neighborhood center. So the community really liked a lot of the ideas in each of these plans that we came up with. This shows what the community thought would be, good things to include in the site. And so you can see they like the idea of these urban spaces that capture stormwater, but more than anything, they wanted to keep the natural topography. They wanted to provide public open space, and a lot of it. And they liked the idea of mixed income housing. And then finally, enhancing those neighborhoods with amenities and connections to some of the neighborhoods surrounding and the hospital itself. So this is the voting on each of those scenarios, and you can see the 2 favorite scenarios were the healthy village concept on the top and the conservation neighborhood on the bottom. So what we did to develop the final plan, oh, sorry, I screwed that up, didn't I? Sorry, I thought I could go back. I don't know how to do that.
I think at the top, it says next, previous, or last viewed. I think if you hit last viewed, you'll get back to where
Oh, thank you
were.
very much. And let me go back one more. Thanks. I need a new prescription of my glasses, so I apologize. So what we did is we created a plan that combined the best aspects, according to those poll results, of the healthy village concept on the top of the screen and the conservation neighborhood approach on the bottom of the screen. These were some of the things that the public said about, and the business community and stakeholders said about the project and what they wanted. And you can see that these really blend well into the approaches that we took for the project. They wanted it to be pedestrian friendly. They didn't want to shop in El Paso if they could help it. They liked the idea of kind of the way downtown is, that you can walk to wherever you want to go, live there, and shop there. So the vision that we developed based on all of that was to build, and this includes the market study, everything we heard from the public, from the city itself, and from those polls, to build upon the existing medical uses at Mountain View, to provide a mix of housing types. So they wanted not just single family, not just a higher density, but a real mix, to integrate with the terrain and to make it a place that respects nature and holds nature as part of the community, to build sustainable buildings and infrastructure, and then to have a mixed-use neighborhood that that's not only put there for the community of East Lowman, but the surrounding existing communities as well, so to create some positives for everyone. So, and the plan framework, I'm going to just go through this very briefly. I know you've heard it before, and if you want me to hurry up, I'm happy to. Just let me know. This is the recommended development plan. So you can see from the plan that we did combine the first and the third concepts. We created what's called a missing middle neighborhood here. We created a health-oriented neighborhood, which could include senior facilities and even senior living, and offices that might work in conjunction with the hospital here. 2 neighborhood nodes, one in kind of the center of the community, and one oriented over towards Roadrunner, which would also be a transit facility. We kept all of the single-family detached along the arroyo, and we created pathways up those arroyos so that those communities of people, including the missing middle, sort of mid-density communities, could use them and have free access to open space. The other thing we did is create a kind of central park right here. And then we kept that, we looked at, and this is really nothing against the existing development, but we looked at the existing development and thought it would have been much better if they would have kept the slopes, respected that, and not had to build those walls there. So we actually kept the highest sloped area, which is right here, which you may remember was that red blob on the map I showed you. And that would be just a terraced walkway from the community down to East Lowman. Another thing we did is we created an intersection right here at Foothills that would then become I'll call it Main Street, if you will, of the center of the community, and another intersection that already exists there at Oñate, right here, Camino de Oñate. One last thing, we just developed a very rudimentary street organization and alignment and grid in areas that are actually owned by a private developer that you might be aware of. All of these, but that idea of a micro-mobility loop, which it'll have smaller streets to connect neighborhoods, and then a street along the arroyo as a kind of beautiful way to get from Paseo de Oñate all the way up to these neighborhoods. This shows the active transportation plan, which includes bicycles and other types of active transportation. So we included a bike lane on all the major streets in the plan area. We have an urban block, which is intended to be used for walking primarily and for all types of transportation to get through. Active transportation. We're recommending a separated bike lane, and this came from our public meetings along East Lowman, 1, to slow down East Lowman, and 2, to create a little more multimodal activity there. And then a multi-use trail, which is the small yellow kind of thread that kind of approaches the subdivisions to the north, to the south, and the arroyo, and then all of the open space. So it kind of creates that last connection. This shows the pedestrian network, so you can see it's a very pedestrian-oriented community development plan. And you may remember those 2 sort of bubbles of the 15-minute walk. This would create a lot of walkability. And then the open space network, which includes a more traditional park right in the center, and open space at its edges, here and here, north and south, and then smaller parks in some of the neighborhoods surrounding the sort of center of activity. So we also developed some implementation recommendations, and I think this is probably among the most important parts, but this is what we believe would help the city create a community that acts and looks and feels like what I just went over for you. So one of the things that we think would really create success, that little sweet spot in the center, would be to develop a regulating plan, strategic infrastructure investments on the part of the city, and then governance that would help to create this final implementation strategy and governance that helps the community succeed and grow. In terms of strategic investments, these are the list of 4 that we think the city could do to sort of jumpstart the community and give it a framework for growth and for building this community. The first one is all those enhancements I mentioned earlier along East Lowman, the bike lanes, the crossings, better pedestrianism, the terraced and landscaped area along that heavy slope. The second is the Paseo de Oñate improvements, and I failed to mention where it says number 2 right there on this map. We're proposing a little village center. It might have a coffee shop, it might have a bookstore, maybe a massage studio, or a wellness studio. And then preserving all those drainage pathways as a third strategic investment. That could be city open space in the end. And then the Foothills Road extension, which runs right down through the middle and would create the kind of spine for the community. So those are our recommendations for what the city could do as strategic investments in the community. We didn't do this planning in a vacuum. We looked at a number of communities. One was at Holiday in Boulder, Colorado. Another was, I believe it was Mueller in Austin. And we looked close by at the Sawmill Community Land Trust in Albuquerque. And so I won't go through this in great detail, but we did look at them very closely for their ownership patterns. All of the common areas are owned by the land trust, and then the buildings themselves are owned by the people that live there. It's got a program of senior housing, mixed use, mixed income, and market rate housing in that same community. You can see from looking at the playground, there are both families and elders and everyone in between that live there. The financing was arranged through a brownfield grant, a cleanup grant, and it reduced housing costs for the community. And there were also grants and subsidies offered by CDBG funding and HUD funding from the federal government. And the city's role was really to transfer the original site, which was undeveloped but very close to other older neighborhoods, to transfer that to the Community Land Trust. And then the Land Trust built the rest of the community in pieces, a piece at a time, with the city participating in the major road infrastructure leading in. So very similar in a lot of ways. These are just the takeaways from that and the other case studies that we looked at. And, you know, dividing these large areas into phases through public investments like, for instance, Foothills Road is something we would recommend. Relying on a public partner is something that would really help the community grow, with the city or even the county potentially being a public partner. To delineate those rights and responsibilities of both the partners and the agencies. To direct public investment into the site that would further the land planning that was done for the site. And sometimes these take a little longer than a quick land sale that, you know, the city might just sell it to one developer in one shot like that. But there's investment in the community, and the community could stand to, community meaning the city of Las Cruces, could stand to create a neighborhood from the ground up, and to also make money on those sales to the development community. Incorporating good urban design, efficient, dense, sustainable housing, and then land sales after the entitlements are done are the other recommendation we're making. So this is one of the, we also looked at the zoning framework for the neighborhood, and what we're suggesting is that the plan on the right is a lot more of what we want, we think, than the plan on the left. On the plan on the left, it's usually single use, looks very much like every office in the US in many ways. The building's always set back from the street with parking between you and the street, and a very vehicular friendly but not pedestrian friendly neighborhood, or parcel. Auto-oriented, obviously. The one on the right could be mixed use with retail below, offices below, housing above. Our office is actually in a development like that. The buildings closer to the street to create a nice architectural street edge that's comfortable to walk on instead of trying to walk on a place like East Loma as it is now. And then attractive and multiple modes of transportation that could include bus stops, a micromobility loop, other things like that. This is just showing the components of a typical form-based code zoning framework. I won't go into great detail about this, but form-based code is, form-based zoning is really about using the architecture of the place more than the zoning. So you're creating a cityscape, a mixed-use neighborhood through the zoning framework. So this is what we're suggesting. We have 2 civic spaces planned. One is on the far west, which is the transportation hub. The other is perhaps something like a library or another civic space, a post office, but some kind of civic space in the center of the community. The health campus, which is closest to the hospital, yet separated by that open space. The village neighborhoods, which are in the kind of peach color, I guess, and then the detached single family. So that's what we're suggesting as the zoning framework based on form-based code. And as I said, some kind of flexible civic space for the center, and then that transit center on the west. That was actually, our design was actually based on the existing transit center near downtown in the valley. Character areas that include kind of the first gateway into the area and then the northeasternmost gateway into the area. They might look like this, those kind of signature buildings are what we're suggesting for those areas. And these are signature buildings from other mixed-use developments that have retail on the bottom, office on the bottom, more hotel or apartments or even lofts on the top. And then the health campus, which could include 3 to 4 stories at a max, senior care living, commercial office space, primarily for doctors or those in the health sector, and then other health-related mixed-use zoning for that area. This is an example, actually, from I believe this was in Portland, Oregon, but it shows a health campus which includes multiple types of housing. No, actually, this was in Dallas, Texas. I'm sorry. Multiple levels of housing that go from almost detached single-family housing up to apartment style or loft style, and then including some of the other mixes of use around the edges. So it really becomes a community for healthy living. And that is the last character area, which is the village neighborhood, which is that missing middle, which might be 3-story max, very pedestrian-oriented. The cars would be behind the buildings, not on the street, and then small-scale commercial. And there's some character sketches for that. And then finally, the detached residential, which everybody's familiar with. So we're trying to give a little bit of everything to the community. And these are some precedents. So our recommendations would also be to create a PUD for this development, to phase it according to market demand, so it would grow as the market demand grew with it. That you use a zoning tool similar to what we just showed you. Consider immediate development opportunities and then also the phased opportunities, provide incentives to developers that would really help them meet the performance standards that this plan offers, and then include a cost design impact analysis as part of the planning and the recommendations. So I hope I didn't take too long. I think I'm done with my presentation. If you have any questions or discussion about this, I'd sure be happy to hear it, and I know my peers would as well.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I really like the plan, and I've been following it and participating in it for quite some time. So my focus is mostly on the implementation. And so one thing I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you're aware of what went on yesterday at the City Council and the work that Fries and Nichols are doing to rewrite our code, the land development code, and their discussion about keeping the use zoning and figuring out where the place types go, and they have a big grid kind of thing they're looking at. So I'm just trying to get the vocabulary down, okay? And you're talking about form-based code as well, but then you're talking about, for your zoning tool, these framework and character areas. So are you both saying the same thing, or am I lost?
No, I think we are saying the same thing. I think they're looking at it more in terms of the whole city, I'm assuming.
Right, yeah, it's the whole city.
And this is looking at it from this particular neighborhood and the way we integrated all those uses, including infrastructure and living accommodations and retail. So I think we are talking the same thing.
So this doesn't already have land use zoning, because it's new, yeah. So it would fit more into the emphasis that they're putting on new areas, which is much more form-based code. So do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. Then my other question is about this, the things you're suggesting the city does, and so I'm familiar with both the Sawmill project. My daughter used to live close to that, and she used to be a planner in Albuquerque.
Oh.
And I'm also familiar with the Holiday Project in Boulder, because my sister-in-law's daughter lives there. And in both cases, there were really strong city partners. So in one case in Albuquerque, you had this Sawmill Community Land Trust, and the Holiday, they partnered with essentially their public housing group. And I don't know who could be the partner in our area, and I don't know. I mean, we don't have a Sawmill Community Land Trust, or how do we get things like that? Or because I understand. I think the suggestions you're making for what the city might do and what some other entity might do, but how do we find those other entities? And I don't know if we already have them, or.
I'll be happy to talk about that a bit. And Danny, if you have anything to say online there, feel free to chip in, or even if you want to start the discussion.
Well, let me add one more thing, and that is that
Sure, Commissioner Thomas.
of all these examples you showed us, what do you think of those, or maybe other examples, is closest to our situation? What should we look at as what might be most possible here? So.
The one that strikes me closest to what would be possible here is and closest, meaning geographically speaking,
Right.
is Montecillo in El Paso. I don't know if you visited that site.
I haven't, but I know about it.
It would be worth going to. It's a very good mix of lofts, residential, different types of residential. I don't think they have any detached single-family units.
Was that not done, though, with their public housing authority in El Paso?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Commissioner Thomas, members of the commission, as I understand it, was actually a private developer.
Private say that again?
As I understand it, it was a private developer, specifically for that development.
And so that, there was a master developer for that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. Mhm.
Okay, so that's another possibility. I want to ask this question too of Catherine, so, I mean, our job is to say whether or not we think the council, this is ready to go to the council, but it's not really our responsibility to say which of these implementation paths we might take. That's up to the council, I'm assuming.
Chair Thomas, members of the commission, yes, it's ultimately a policy decision in terms of how the council wants to move forward if indeed this plan is adopted and recommended for adoption by you. And those are items that would be set forth in various methods. So for example, those items could be placed on CIP, they could be part of the city's strategic plan, but ultimately, yes, those are policy decisions that would have to come from council.
And we're just, the idea that I promoted with the slide that showed possible public investments, the 4 public investments, versus what the developer might do, were just ideas. I mean, I think that really needs to be worked through to get to a point where it's agreeable to all of the stakeholders, including the public, the city, and a developer. The fact that, and Commissioner Thomas, just because you brought it up, there aren't many developers in southern New Mexico and El Paso that do this kind of development, and that was one of the reasons why we tried to offer some possible implementation strategies that the city could use to build public infrastructure that would help to spur the kind of development that we're talking about. Danny, did you want to offer anything?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can hear me clearly, this is Danielle Wilson. I'm a planner with Site Southwest, for the record. So just a few thoughts in response to your question there, Chair Thomas. The first is that we see our job is identifying those possibilities for moving forward in a way that we can realize the vision that the community has set before us. So we see that there are elements from each of these examples, these case studies we've identified, as well as from what we've learned through our conversations with city staff, with stakeholders, with developers both in Las Cruces and throughout the state, that we can use to provide those options for a path forward. But you are correct that ultimately it will be up to city leadership to choose what that path is. I might add too that we are talking about a PUD using the form-based code, so it would fit into any zoning reform that's going on right now at the city level.
So, and I don't want to drag this out for a long time, I just want to say that, and I don't want to ask my fellow commissioners here to make, engage in making decisions. I just want to ask that when you get to the city council, please put quite a bit of focus and information on the implementation part, because I think that's kind of difficult for us, and I'd like to see the council really focus on that, so that's all I'm asking. Other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Gordon?
I have a comment and a question. I think I'm going to ask my question first. I don't think there's anyone here from the city who will be able to answer this. But if I remember correctly, that part of the concept of this whole project is that some of the property that's involved does belong to the city. That's correct, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so sometime in the future, if this thing becomes a reality, the city will probably wind up selling that property to someone, a developer, somebody's going to buy it and do whatever they're going to want to do with it. Maybe not. Well, that's possible too. Well, who knows? But my point is, and this is only a comment, and I would like just to go back to the city council. I have spoken many, many times in the past about landscaping of Lowman. They just spent $25 or $30 million coming off of Route 25 onto University to make it a beautiful entrance into Las Cruces. But if you get off at Loman and go east, I mean, it doesn't look like anything you would think was, nothing left by choice. I was just hoping perhaps if they do get enough money, and it's possible that it's not restricted from the sale of that land, that they could take some of it and just landscape Loman from Telshire all the way up to this project. It would really look very nice. That would only enhance the entrance to this project. So that's my comment. And my second, that's a question, I'm sorry, my comment is, if you go down Loman now, when you go down to the east part where the Walmart is, and you're coming west, you see that there is now starting some building there by developers. They put in 2 strip malls. And I think that the concept of what is being planned here, if it could come to fruition, I think would be wonderful. It looks terrific, and it would certainly look great and would do wonders for the city. But personally, I think, like anything else, that this whole project is going to be driven by demand. Any realtor or any developer or anybody who comes in here is going to look at this and say, look, I know what I can do to create a profit for myself. He's not going to do it for nothing. And he may look at this and say, everything that the concept is now being given to me is something that I can't live with. So this particular part of this plan is something that I'm going to have to change drastically in order for me to come in and do whatever I think has to be done for me to make money. I'm speaking as a retired businessman. I know what it is to invest money, to make money. And this is just something that I can see it already happening. It's starting to move. It's starting to move west. So that's just a comment that I have. As I can already see what's happening, and I'm just hoping that somebody will take note of this if it goes before City Council and City Council approves it. That people will look at it and say, this is a wonderful idea, and let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Commissioner. Using the sawmill project as another example, and even Country Club Plaza, which is where actually my office exists in Albuquerque, the idea of mixed use is something foreign to a lot of traditional developers. And we have a lot of traditional developers in New Mexico in general, and Texas for that matter, especially West Texas. And so finding the right developer partner to do either the whole project or multiple projects, and a partner with the city, I think, is really key to making it successful and to enabling the plan that we've done to become reality. And so those kinds of developers that are doing that, and the reason I mentioned the one that our office is in is it's mixed use. It has apartments, lofts, it has retail, it has offices like my own, and everything from a brewery to, an apartment. And so that kind of mixed use takes a specific kind of developer, and I think there are developers interested in working in Las Cruces in that kind of way. And we've actually talked to some of them as part of our planning, and there is interest outside of Las Cruces, and I think there could be interest in Las Cruces, or at the very least in El Paso, to do something like what we're suggesting and to follow those rules to make money and be a good business. I hope that answered your question, or at least furthered your comment.
Yes, it's just a thought. I know what it took for me to make an investment into something that was going to give me a return and make a profit. And I think it deals the same with anybody who gets into any type of business, whether you're building residential, you're building business, or you're building whatever. You're not doing it just because you have nothing else to do. You want to make money. And I think what's happening now, hopefully that if we get rid of this darn pandemic business, that everything sort of gets back to normal. And you can see what's happening, that there are a lot of people who want to come here to Las Cruces. This is a wonderful place to retire.
It is.
The weather is good. We have a lot to offer. We have 10, we have the university, we have museums, we have art, we have everything. And I think you'll see it now, a lot of people who are coming here are coming from when I grew up in, as you can tell, when I grew up in New York, everybody went to Florida, like I did. But eventually I wound up in Las Cruces because I saw what was here. And I think a lot of people now I now have met people who have come from the East Coast and come from Michigan and Illinois and places like that from the middle, where before they went to Arizona, you know, so I think that's going to happen here too. And something like this is a great enticement. There's a lot to offer in a little bit of space. I mean, it's not so little, but in terms of everything that they would want to partake, you know, to partake of. So I hope it works. I really do. I'm looking forward to it. I hope I live long enough to see it.
I do too.
Yeah. Commissioner Guerrero?
Oh, sorry, was there somebody going to speak?
I'm so sorry. I can hold off on my comment. I just had a quick response to Commissioner Gordon, but I can hold off until the end.
Okay, I'll be really, really brief. I actually really love this. So like, as I was hearing Commissioner Gordon speak, I was thinking of like, you know, like myself, like my wife and I bought a house, gosh, it's going on 6 years, I think almost 7 years. If a place like this this type of neighborhood would have existed 6 or 7 years ago, we would have definitely looked at it. You know, like they're like people that are, you know, young. I'm not like super young, I'm 35, but you know, people in my age range or even younger, like, you know, like we want to see more places like this. We want to see, hey, where there's like breweries or there's like coffee shops and there's stuff that you can walk to. You know, like that's the kind of stuff I think a lot of people want to see. And I understand Las Cruces it's been marketed for many, many years as a retirement community, and it still is, and it still should be. You know, I mean, like, you know, we all love retirees. They make great contributions to our city and our economy and the housing market, but there's also a lot of people that are, you know, graduating college or they're starting families and, you know, having parks, having, you know, breweries, restaurants nearby where you don't have to drive to. Also, you know, save gas, save the environment, save people money. Like that's even better. So I really, really like it. You know, again, like Commissioner Gordon said, it's one thing is having a plan, another thing is having developers wanting to do it. I've actually been to some of the businesses over in Montecillo and El Paso, and it's a neat place. It's actually a really, really neat community just in general. So, you know, I hope that there are developers that want to do this because I feel like we need this kind, you know, different kind of housing for Las Cruces, for the people that want it. And there's also traditional neighborhoods for the people that want that. So, yeah, that was my comment.
Anyone else?
Yes, it's Commissioner
Commissioner
Smith. Yes. This is a very ambitious project, and I'm pretty excited for it also. You know, I work as a ranger on the Oregon Mount Pleasant Peak National Monument,
nice.
and so I am constantly meeting and talking with people who are coming to Las Cruces to scout. And many of them are retirees. A lot of them are younger families in their 30s, 40s with families and kids, and so and they're coming from all over the country. And so this type of project is exciting because I know that area. You know, as a wildland firefighter, I've driven the Hummer out there in the hills out there. So just also part of seeing the city grow and how we want it to grow, and knowing that this area potentially will have the type of development that will draw a variety of people from different parts of the country, different age demographics, you know, to this place where we can hopefully go back to where you have a neighborhood where you have retirees mixing with younger families, and there's walkability, and there's healthcare that's you know, in close proximity, especially close to the hospital that's there. So I too would hopefully I'm alive to see this happen, and Commissioner Gordon may probably outlive me, but so I hope that, you know, as this goes to the City Council, that this proposal will be a strong one.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vega?
Commissioner Vega, thank you. I think one of the things that, not all, but a lot of us have, I was working from home before the pandemic hit, but I think due to the pandemic, we've seen how many people can continue to work from home, and it's not so much about where you go as what you do. So for as much as it is a retirement community predominantly and attracts all all sorts of other people to Las Cruces. This is something else to keep in mind. So then how do we maximize where we live and just kind of enjoy all the benefits of where we reside? The one thing I do wonder is, I live near downtown. I walk downtown most weekends and during the week and just have a good time down there. And it's really nice to bike, walk. And obviously, we're not going to figure this out today, but going to on the other side of 25 for me feels like a journey. So, and I avoid it at all costs unless I have to, or certain times of day, and I know which routes I want to take because of traffic and all that. So it would just be interesting to see, you talk about the transit center, what connectivity could look like from one side of the freeway to the other. And I know it's like two totally different ways of living and the way things are developed, but just something I've been thinking about. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vega. I think something that Commissioner Gordon said could really help, and that's to make East Lowman, and for that matter, the Lowman on this side of the freeway, be more connective and be more beautiful and really create something that connects the two. I think there's a really good idea there. You know, and a lot of that development from I-25 East has, I mean, I know it's followed planning, city planning, but it doesn't have a continuity to it that it could have with city work in that area. So
I have just one last comment, and there's someone here who might want to speak to that. Is there was something in this plan about relocating the gas line, so there's a group of people here who are talking about all electric subdivisions and the possibility of not having gas and having, what am I trying to say?
Solar?
No, not solar, no.
Mixed energy? Low carbon footprint.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Kurtz will come up here and explain what I'm trying to say. So heat pump kind of approach to heating and cooling, and so that you don't have to have gas for anything. So
before we do, Danny, did you have anything else you wanted to add? I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah. No, thanks, George. I appreciate that, and I'll be very brief. But I just wanted to say that I know when you see a plan like this, it can feel as though it's going to take a million years, and it might be a little bit of a pipe dream, but I think what we're trying to do is show that there are clear examples of these communities being successful in cities like Las Cruces. And what we're trying to do is to create those conditions for developers to not only see the demand for this kind of development, to fully understand the cost, and then have ways to work with the city to access either federal funds or very targeted public funds that would go toward creating those conditions that meet community needs and fulfill these quality of life amenities that we are proposing here. So I just wanted to say that because I think that a goal of both myself and George and the rest of the team that we've been working with the city of Las Cruces is to make sure that this is a real actionable and implementable plan. And so that's something that we will focus on moving forward before we go to city council if we get to that point.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And Don Kurtz, do you want to say a couple words about all electric or electric ready neighborhoods, and especially given that this plan, there's not a ready available gas line, this might be a good possibility.
Do I need to swear in? No?
Yes, you do. The people who are the presenters don't, but your name is?
My name is Don Kurtz.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, again, I'm Don Kurtz. I'm a resident of Las Cruces, and I appreciate the opportunity to make contact. I also want to thank the mayor, council, and staff for consolidating and developing this great parcel of land. It provides an unparalleled opportunity for the people of the community, and I hope we take full advantage of it. The mayor has highlighted the East Lowman development in his last two State of the City addresses, underscoring the opportunity to create a well-designed, attractive, energy-efficient community with housing affordable to a broad spectrum of local residents. I've followed the progress of the East Lowman development closely, and I believe it's on track to achieve those objectives, and I share the commissioner's enthusiasm for it. What I'd like to do is urge the Planning and Zoning Commission to add a recommendation to council on the plan that the East Lowman development, in accordance with the city's climate action plan and its strong efforts to curb carbon emissions, be an all-electric community. Councillor Sorg has, for the same reasons, proposed that East Lowman be a zero-carbon community. In practical terms, this means that the development needs to be all-electric with no gas infrastructure or service. In making this decision, we'll be joining cities and counties throughout the world in moving away from burning fossil fuels to heat buildings and water. And the value of electricity for this purpose stems from the Energy Transition Act, which was passed by the legislature in 2019, that requires all electricity generated by utilities in the state be 50% zero carbon by 2030 and 100% by 2045. So simply by connecting this development with El Paso Electric, the development would immediately be on a steady, reliable path towards zero carbon energy. And it doesn't involve coming up with our own solar panels everywhere. It's something that would just be naturally happening in the course of the state's progress. All electric technologies for heat and water heaters are rapidly advancing, and new all-electric buildings are already less expensive to build than buildings fueled by natural gas. And part of this is the enormous amount of infrastructure that has to be put in gas by the developer. Electrical power is also safer, and it avoids the higher incidence of asthma and other health problems that are increasingly being associated with burning gas indoors. Development costs would be less, and carbon emissions per the city policy would be significantly lowered. The City Council recently passed a resolution calling on its own gas utility to develop, quote, milestones and strategies to determine the path to non-fossil fuel dependent energy and decarbonization of the system and investments over the next 30 years, unquote. The East Lowman development will serve as a readily available model for all builders trying to pursue these goals. For all of these reasons, I urge you to include a recommendation that the East Lowman development be all electric with no gas infrastructure installed. So, thanks.
Is that something you're familiar with?
Not as an engineer, but yes, I personally have been promoting sustainability from all sectors since my college days, which was a long time ago.
So I don't know that those of us up here feel confident enough to actually make a solid recommendation to the City Council, but I very much would like for you to introduce this idea, especially given that there's not a readily available gas, and there are people on the City Council who are aware of this approach, and so it would be very good to emphasize that. And Commissioner Guerrero, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment kind of echoing what Mr. Kurtz just said. So my day job, and I try not to bring the planning and zoning and my work combined because that's the dangerous line I don't necessarily want to cross. But my day job is for an environmental organization, and we talk all the time about sustainability. We talk all the time about, like what these kind of like 100% electric neighborhoods would look like, or even like, more accessibility for people to have that. Most working people cannot afford solar. They cannot afford an electric vehicle. So I feel like having something like this where, again, this is we got to treat this like, it's like, it's like a brand new baby, right? Like it hasn't been corrupted, nothing bad has happened yet, it hasn't got sick. That's kind of how we have to treat this. It's like, this is an opportunity with a brand new development, brand new land to have this kind of structure readily to hopefully use. And there are a lot of green developers or, that are probably interested in this kind of stuff. So, again, I'm excited to see how this develops. And what Don just said just really just got me even more pumped about it.
And I believe this building is heat pump warmed and cooled, is it not? But it goes into the ground. And what Don Kurtz is talking about is using air to do the same thing. So much easier to do. There are a couple other people from the public that are still here. Did any of you want to say anything? Can't hear you.
When the city council starts, I just wanted to get a little bit of feel of what's going on.
Okay.
But I did want to say something. You got that?
Go ahead.
And what's your name?
My name is David Sierras.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do. Yeah, I live up above Coyote. It's really none of the development directly there, but I'm directly behind the hospital. And he was mentioning something about building a community for elderlies and homes like that. Well, it's kind of hard to do when you got helicopters and ambulances, and we have a fire department across the street that goes off every hour or so, and helicopters that are coming in. And we also have a police station and all that, so I don't really think that would work. Maybe for younger people, but not for, it really bothers the older people in my community. Another thing is since I've lived there in the last 20 years, I used to look up at a beautiful sky. But with all the development going on in the hospital, it's slowly taken away from that. And as you go down the street where they want to develop there, I would like to see some kind of lighting where it stays down and it doesn't illuminate the sky. And I didn't hear nothing about that, and that's one of my main concerns in that and traffic. Commissioner Gordon here, I like that, building something in there, but I would like to see those mediums shortened so you could maybe build a 3-lane and we could have a little bit of more people to come in and maybe make a left turn and keep the traffic flowing through there. And that traffic going through there is 25 miles per hour. And that's going to be noise too, with more cars coming and different type of housing with younger people and older people. But I do like the idea of having cafes and things like that. That really is, are expanding through the hospital because it is an elderly area. And those people are in that need, but I'm like you, I like those pubs too. So that's all I really had to say, and I think a lot of it I'll address if it moves on to the city council. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we're ready. Any more comments up here, or are we ready for a vote? Okay.
Board Member Smith?
Yes, I propose they move forward. My reason is based on just the potential that this project has to really grow the city in a way that's going to be good for the future of Las Cruces, particularly in the eastern part of the city.
Board Member Guerrero?
I vote yes based on the Elevate Las Cruces plan, city recommendations, and also wanting to see different kinds of neighborhoods in our city.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes based on today's presentation and prior presentations that we've had on this. It also supports Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Gordon?
I definitely vote yes based on many presentations that I have seen and heard. And I think that if this project comes, like I said before, to fruition, then it's basically exactly how you sort of planned it. I think it would be beautiful, and I just hope it happens.
Chairperson Thomas?
I also vote yes, based on the presentation and all the work I've seen that's gone into planning this project, and the possibility that this project can become a real model for what Elevate Las Cruces is trying to bring to this community. And I just want to tell one quick story. There was a guy in Texas, he had all these engineers who were working for him, and they kept leaving and going to Portland. And he kept saying, why do they want to go to Portland? It rains there all the time. And, well, Portland's already done all these kinds of neighborhoods, and that's why they were going to Portland. So I think Las Cruces should have some of those neighborhoods too. Next on our agenda is any commission commentary before we leave?
Turn on the air conditioning.
Yes, it's very warm in here. Any staff announcements?
Thank you, Chair Thomas, members of the commission. Just wanted to run over a couple of things. As you all know, there was the work session that was hosted yesterday with City Council to talk about the code diagnostic. If you were unable...
Mr. Kurtz, excuse me, Mr. Kurtz, could you wait just a few minutes? Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention, if you were unable to attend, I would encourage you to perhaps watch the video that's available online, and also review the diagnostic itself. It gives you a good idea of how we're going to move forward and some of the prime topics. Of course, it's not set in stone. It's just a guide moving forward and doesn't cover everything in terms of what's being revised as part of the land use development update. But good information nonetheless. Also wanted you all to consider whether or not these types of meetings are going to be problematic in the future, because if I do hear that from this commission, there is an opportunity to modify what was in our public involvement plan. We could adjust those so that you and City Council meet separately and we do them at the normal Planning and Zoning Commission time. You wouldn't have the interaction with Council, but it is an opportunity, and did want to get your feedback, because I do know it was problematic for a few of you to attend yesterday. But that is all I have this evening. Thank you, Chair Thomas and Commission.
I would just add that when the website for the Land Development Code is Realize Las Cruces. If you go into Google and you just put in Realize Las Cruces, you won't find it. You have to put in Realize Las Cruces with no space, as it is when it's a URL. So I kept trying to find it on Google, and then I realized that I needed to keep out the space. So I asked them about that yesterday. They're going to try to fix it, but I hope you all go look at the website and hope you can find it more easily than I could. Anything else?
Then I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
First time I feel fine.